The silver-haired dreamwalker moved with a fluid grace, petals drifting from her cloak like whispers caught in a gentle breeze. Alina's heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and unease. The previous dreams had been passive, visions intruding unbidden. But now she was stepping willingly into the realm where memories lived and lingered. A place where time was less a line and more a tangled thicket. Alice paused before a curtain of translucent petals, their edges flickering with iridescent light. "Beyond this veil lies the garden of lost souls," she said softly, her voice like a melody woven from the jungle's own sighs. "Here, memories that refuse to fade take root, anchoring spirits in limbo. To heal the Empire, we must nourish their release." Alina reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed the petals. A cool rush enveloped her, and the world shifted. They stepped into a vast garden bathed in twilight hues, where flowers bloomed with faces and voices murmured beneath leaves. The landscape was both beautiful and sorrowful, a living testament to history's refused and pain unspoken. Ethereal figures drifted like fading blossoms caught in a restless wind. Their forms flickered, half-formed and fragile, eyes wide with confusion and longing. Alina's breath caught as she recognized the unmistakable ache of souls weary from being trapped in their own memories. "These are the forgotten," Alice explained, kneeling beside a figure whose translucent hands clutched spectral vines binding it to a twisted tree of memories. Bound by grief, fear, or regret, they cannot move on without aid. Alina swallowed her fear and stepped forward. "How do we help them?" she asked. "Touch them," Alice said, "and let the flower's magic flow through you. It weaves memory and life, untying what binds. But be warned, these souls carry echoes of pain that can reach deep into your own heart." Gathering her courage, Alina extended her hands toward the trapped spirit. As her fingers neared the spectral vines, a soft glow emanated from the flower she carried, pulsing like a heartbeat. Warmth spread through her palms, and the vines trembled, loosening their grip. Suddenly, the spirit's anguished face twisted in a silent scream, memories of betrayal and loss washing over Alina in vivid flashes of shadow and flame. She staggered but held firm, focusing on the gentle light radiating from her hands. Slowly, the vines unraveled, dissolving into motes of shimmering dust. The spirit's eyes softened, and a peaceful smile blossomed before it faded into a cascade of glowing petals that drifted upward and vanished. Alina exhaled, her body trembling from the intensity. Alice placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You have the gift," she said quietly, "but the path is perilous. Each soul freed strengthens the Empire's healing, yet also deepens your bond with the flower and with the King's lingering presence." As they moved deeper into the dreamscape, Alice chanted ancient words, petals swirling around them in luminous spirals. The dreamscape shifted and twisted, revealing scenes from the Empire's tangled past tribes, united by fear. Gardens blooming with both beauty and blood, memories folding over one another like tangled vines. Alina's senses were overwhelmed by the mingling of sight, sound, and feeling. She saw children's laughter echo through the leaves, heartrending cries hidden beneath the canopy, and the steady pulse of life intertwining all. The weight of the Empire's collective memory pressed upon her. Yet there was a thread of hope woven through the darkness, fragile promise that the past could be honored without repeating its cruelties. They came upon another spirit, trapped in a web of memories too painful to face alone. This time, Alina reached out with greater confidence, channeling the flower's magic with steady hands. The spirit's form brightened, the spectral vines retreating as a soft melody filled the era song of release and renewal. When the last soul in the garden was freed, Alina and Ellis stepped back through the veil of petals. The jungle's familiar sounds greeted them, the rustle of leaves, distant bird calls, the steady hum of life. Yet something within Alina had changed. The burdens she carried felt lighter, tempered by a growing resolve to protect and heal. "The work is far from over," Ellis said, her silver eyes reflecting the dawn. "But you have taken the first true step. Remember, the flower's power is both a gift and a trial. The Empire's wounds run deep, and healing demands courage beyond the dreamscape." Alina nodded, clutching the flower close. As the sun rose over the jungle empire, petals of light danced in the morning breeze, whispering promises of renewal and hope. She knew the path ahead would be fraught with peril, but for the first time, she felt ready to walk it. And somewhere, deep within the flower's heart, the forgotten king stirred, his ancient spirit watching, waiting for what she did not yet know. The Dreamwalker's path had opened, and with it, the possibility of change. But in the quiet that followed, a single petal drifted from the bloom, twisting slowly on the wind, silent herald of challenges yet to come. The rare petals of the flower lay half-opened in a shallow basin of water at the Centaur living relic, both beautiful and malevolent. Around her, the gentle rustling of leaves and distant calls of jungle creatures wove a fragile soundtrack to her growing unease. But beneath this natural symphony, a whisper threaded through the air, a subtle and insistent murmur that she could no longer ignore. At first, the whispers were fleeting, barely a breath against her consciousness. But with each passing day, they grew louder, more insistent, curling around her thoughts like vines, tightening their grip. The tyrant king's soul, trapped within the flower's petals, seeped into her mind, threading its memories and emotions into the fabric of her own. She could feel it pressing against the walls of her identity, probing for cracks. The sensation was both intoxicating and terrifying. Alina pressed her palms against the worn wooden table, steadying herself as a shiver ran down her spine. "I am not him," she whispered, a fragile mantra in the oppressive stillness. But the words felt hollow, swallowed by shadows that twisted in the corners of her vision. Her solitude was broken by the hesitant knock at the door. Moreau's familiar voice filtered through. "Alina, are you all right?" The concern in his tone was unmistakable. "Come in," she called, forcing a steadiness she did not feel. Moreau stepped into the dim room, his sun-tanned skin contrasting with the cool green hues of the plants. His eyes, sharp and watchful, immediately found the flower. "It's changing you," he said quietly, crossing his arms. "I see it in your eyes, hear it in your voice. You're drifting away from us." Alina's gaze dropped to the flower's petals, which now pulsed with an almost imperceptible rhythm, like a heartbeat beneath skin. "I'm not drifting," she replied, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "I'm learning. The memories inside this flower, they're not just echoes. They're pieces of a history that can't be forgotten." "At what cost?" Moreau asked, stepping closer. "You're becoming someone else. The king's shadow is growing inside you. If you lose yourself to him, what will be left of Alina Tar?" She clenched her fists, the frustration bubbling beneath her calm veneer. "I'm not afraid of losing myself. I'm afraid of what happens if no one remembers." The tension between them thickened the air, charged with years of friendship bending under the weight of secrets and fears. Moreau's expression softened, but his words remained firm. "We need to face this together. You don't have to carry it alone." Later that night, Alina found herself walking the jungle paths toward the secluded grove where Ellis awaited. The Dreamwalker's presence was a balm and a challenge, a reminder that the boundary between waking and dreaming, past and present, was thinner than she dared admit. Ellis greeted her with a nod, silver vines of hair shimmering under the moonlight. "Your mind, phrase," she observed, her voice like the rustle of petals in a breeze. "The tyrant's memories claw at your soul, seeking to unravel your essence." Alina lowered herself onto a mossy stone, exhaustion weighing heavy in her bones. "I don't know how to hold on. Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing inside this flower." Ellis extended a slender hand, touching Alina's forehead lightly. "Let me show you." Together, they slipped into the dreamscape. The world blurred into mist and petals, colors swirling like liquid light. They stood in a vast garden of shadows where spectral figures drifted, ancient advisors of King Velen, their voices a chorus of regret and power. Ellis guided Alina to a fractured memory, a vision of the king alone in his throne room, surrounded by silence and fading glory. His eyes, piercing and haunted, met hers across time. "He was lonely," Ellis whispered. "His cruelty was born from fear and failure. You share more with him than you know." Alina's heart pounded as empathy and fear tangled within her. The king's solitude mirrored her own isolation, yet she refused to surrender to it. "I will not become him," she vowed. The dreamscape dissolved, leaving her breathless beneath the canopy of flowering vines. The tyrant's voice surged inside her, a storm of demands and memories. She grasped the flower tightly, grounding herself in the jungle's vibrant life. "This ends with me," she whispered, eyes shining with determination. "I choose who I am." Yet as the night deepened, the threads around her frayed further, and the battle for her soul was far from over. In the quiet aftermath, a single petal drifted to the floor, a fragile promise of the war within and the hope that still flickered amidst the shadows. The rare blossom, cradled gently in her palm, pulsed faintly, its petals glowing with a soft inner light that seemed to breathe with secrets. She reached for her knife, the blade shimmering under the bioluminescent fungi that clung to the walls like stars fallen into the jungle's embrace. With meticulous care, she sliced a petal away, exposing the delicate veins within. What she saw made her breath catch. The veins were not merely channels of sap, but intricate filaments, shimmering with iridescent hues that shifted and danced like liquid light. As her eyes adjusted, faint images flickered within those delicate strands, whispers of faces, fragments of voices, shreds of memories caught and preserved in a botanical web. It was as if the flower had grown not just from soil and water, but from the very essence of the past itself. Alina's heart pounded with a mixture of awe and a creeping sense of dread. This was no ordinary plant. It was a living archive, a garden of remembrance, weaving the intangible into the tangible. She recalled the stories whispered by Sori, the village elder, of plants that could hold history in their roots and petals. But this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. A fusion of life and memory that transcended the limits of science and magic. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her journal, hurriedly sketching the intricate patterns she glimpsed within the petal's veins. The realization dawned heavy and profound. Memories here were not just stored, they were alive, growing and shifting as part of the flower's very being. The implications were staggering. To hold this flower was to hold history itself, to wield the power to preserve or manipulate the past in ways no one had dared before. A sudden rustle at the open window broke her reverie. Morrow stepped in, his sun-tanned face shadowed with concern. "Alina," he said quietly, closing the door behind him, "the markets grow restless. Word spreads of your discovery. Factions from all corners of the empire are moving, hungry for the flower." She looked up, green eyes meeting his steady gaze. "I know, but there's more. The flower, it's alive with memories, not just magic. The past isn't just recorded here, it's intertwined with the plant's very life. Morrow's brows furrowed. That kind of power, it could change everything, or destroy it all. Alina nodded, the weight of her responsibility pressing down like the humid jungle air. I must understand it fully, and decide how it should be used. Later, under the silver light of the moon, Ellis emerged from the shadows, her hair flowing like woven silver vines. "Come," she whispered, "I will show you the garden where memory and life dance as one." Together, they slipped into the dreamscape, a realm where reality blurred with reverie. Their flowers bloomed with faces ancient souls, captured in petals that whispered secrets on the breeze. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and forgotten tears. Alina reached out, touching a blossom that hummed with the voice of a long-lost child, her laughter echoing softly like wind through leaves. "This is what you hold," Ellis said, "a garden of souls, a place where memory is not forgotten but lives, breathes, and waits." The beauty was overwhelming, but so too was the haunting knowledge that such power could be a curse. Could she protect this fragile balance? Could the Empire endure if its past was no longer buried but intertwined with the living present? As dawn crept over the jungle canopy, Alina found herself alone beneath the great trees, the flower resting softly in her lap. The chorus of cicadas and distant calls of exotic birds faded into a solemn silence. Her mind wrestled with the ethical tempest swirling within her, a question of stewardship or dominion, of healing or harm. The garden's heart beat in rhythm with her own, a living symbol of memory's fragile power. And Alina knew the path ahead would demand not only knowledge and courage, but a reckoning with the very soul of the Empire. Her fingers brushed a petal, and the whisper of the forgotten king stirred faintly. A reminder that the past was never truly gone and that the future depended on the choices she would make. The jungle held its breath, awaiting her next move. Alina moved cautiously, her boots silent against the mossy earth. Beside her, Morrow's steady presence was a balm against the tightening grip of anxiety that had settled into her chest over the past days. "They're watching," Morrow murmured, eyes scanning the twisting vines and gnarled roots as if the very forest might betray them. Alina nodded, clutching the delicate flower wrapped carefully in a cloth at her side. The petals shimmered faintly, as if aware of the danger lurking in the Empire's tangled politics. "I can feel it too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "The factions are closing in, but I don't know who's truly after it." Morrow's gaze hardened. Doran's been seen in the memory markets again. His reach is longer than we thought. The memory market was a chaotic heart of the Empire's economy, a sprawling maze of stalls and shadowed alcoves where memories were bought and sold like precious jewels. It was a place where trust was scarce and betrayal often bloomed like poisonous flowers. That evening, under the flickering light of hanging lanterns shaped like blossoms, Alina and Morrow entered the market. The air was thick with the scent of exotic spices and the faint, eerie hum of traded memories, fragments of joy, pain, love, and loss, swirling invisibly among the crowd. Ellis awaited them in a secluded corner, her silver hair glowing softly in the dimness, petals woven into her cloak fluttering with each subtle movement. "The flower reacts," Ellis said, her voice a melodic whisper as she reached out, tracing ancient sigils in the air above the petals. "Its power is awakening. We must be vigilant." Alina watched as the flower pulsed gently, a living nexus of memory and magic. The Dreamwalker's chants seemed to weave a protective aura. But even Ellis's formidable presence could not mask the growing unease threading through the market. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the crowd. Doran's sharp eyes locked onto Alina. a predator's smile curling his lips. With a subtle signal, figures cloaked in the garb of memory traders began to converge, their footsteps muffled but purposeful. "We need to leave," Morrow hissed, grabbing Alina's arm. But the market's labyrinthine paths seemed to close in around them, every alleyway a potential trap. Retreat turned into a tense dance of evasion, the trio slipping through narrow corridors, the whispered calls of their pursuers growing louder. The jungle's night air pressed close, thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, both beautiful and deadly. Back in the safety of a hidden grove, Alina's relief was short-lived. A trusted ally, whose face she had seen since childhood, approached with hesitant steps. "Alina," the voice was soft, almost pleading. "There are forces you don't understand. The flowers, power. It must be controlled." Her heart faltered as the words unfolded into confession of betrayal that sliced through her like a cold wind. The allies' allegiance lay with those seeking to harness the flower's power for domination, not healing. "Why?" Alina's voice cracked. "After all we've been through." The alley's eyes, once warm, now shimmered with cold calculation. "The empire must be forged anew. Sometimes, past cruelty is necessary for future strength." As Petals drifted silently to the soil beneath them, Alina felt the weight of the empire's shadows pressing in. The flower's glow dimmed, reflecting the fracture of trust that now threatened to unravel everything. Yet within the depths of despair, a spark of resolve ignited. She would not allow the past to be weaponized again. The flowering future of the jungle empire depended on her courage and discernment. "We move forward," Alina declared, eyes blazing with determination. "Together or not at all." The night whispered around them, carrying the scent of blossoms and betrayal, and the promise of battles yet to come. The rare flower, nestled beside her, seemed to hum with a subtle energy, its petals quivering like the wings of a restless bird. Guided by Ellis's whispered incantations, Alina closed her eyes and let the dreamscape fold around her endless expanse where past and present wove together, beneath a sky blooming with stars like fragile blossoms. She stepped into the dream with cautious reverence, the vibrant greens of the jungle melting into the cold marble and shadowed corridors of a palace. But this was no ordinary palace. Its walls seemed to pulse with the slow decay of withering flowers, petals drifting down like snowflakes, each petal a whisper of sorrow and loss. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and crushed blossoms, and faint voices echoed murmurs of lament, accusations, and fleeting hope. Alina moved through the halls, her senses heightened. She could hear the faint rustle of silk, the distant clang of a ceremonial bell, the soft sobbing of a man burdened by memories too heavy for any crown. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, King Velen, the forgotten tyrant, manifest in form both regal and broken. His presence was striking, woven from petals and shadows, his eyes piercing yet clouded with a haunted vulnerability that unsettled Alina's heart. "Why do you come?" he asked, his voice a fragile thread of sound, trembling with an unspoken pain. "To condemn me, to seize my power." Alina swallowed, the weight of his gaze pressing upon her. "I came seeking truth," she said softly, "not to wield power, but to understand." Velen's form flickered, shifting between the grandeur of a sovereign and the fragile decay of a fallen man. "I was once a king," he murmured, "a ruler who forged unity through fear and iron will. Yet I fell betrayed, not only by others, but by my own ambition." Ellis appeared beside Alina, her silver-vined hair glowing faintly in this spectral realm. "Look," she urged, gesturing toward a garden beyond the palace walls, where ghostly petals bloomed in ethereal light. Together, they moved through this garden of memories, each bloom revealing a shard of Velen's past, moments of tenderness with his people, flashes of doubt and regret, the heavy silence after bloodshed. Alina's heart ached as she witnessed the man behind the tyrant, a soul trapped between cruelty and compassion, haunted by the very legacy he left behind. One memory lingered, longer a vision of Velen seated alone beneath a massive tree, the crown beside him fractured and tarnished. Petals drifted down like tears as he whispered a lament to the wind, mourning a future lost to his own making. The dream began to fade, the garden dissolving into mist. And Alina awoke with a start, the flower's petals gently opening beside her. Her mind swirled with new understanding. The tyrant was not merely a monster to be destroyed, but a complex spirit whose regrets could teach the Empire and herself about the delicate balance of power and redemption. As dawn crept through her window, Alina resolved to embrace this revelation. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and political intrigue, but she now carried a seed of compassion that might blossom into healing. With the flower's mysterious power and the memories it held, she would strive not for domination, but for reconciliation. The Empire's future hung in the balance, and Alina knew that understanding the lament of a forgotten king was the first step toward shaping a world where memory was not a weapon, but a bridge. And as the morning light kissed the petals, a quiet hope stirred within her, a fragile promise that even in the shadow of tyranny, renewal was possible.